All right, so full disclosure, in case some of y'all are wondering and head scratching, I did do this video before, but unfortunately, it got taken down due to copyright. So I wanted to wait a few months before I re-uploaded this. And today with me, I got my boy Sage back with me. Say it, everybody.
Yo, what's up, guys? Always a pleasure to be on the channel. Good opportunity to cook, especially when we're talking about Kakashi and Obito. I'm always down for that. Even if we have to do the same topic again, but don't worry, it's going to be even better this time.
I said we're going to be spitting. And so today, and for clarity, if y'all haven't seen the title and the thumbnail, should have given it away. But in case it didn't, we're talking about Kakashi and Obito versus the Akatsuki, the entire Akatsuki, all at the same time. And just for clarity, the versions of Kakashi and Obito we're going to be using are War Arc Kakashi with one Sharingan, so all of his one Sharingan feats, excluding obviously the feats he pulled off with the Nine Tails Chakra. And this Obito is going to be pretty much the Orange Mask Obito, not Rinnegan Obito, but like I want y'all to imagine this is Obito in his Leaf Village attire that he's seen in Naruto's Taught no Jutsu vision type of thing, as it's shown in the thumbnail. So just to make it more like a team up Leaf team kind of deal. So yeah, so it's basically going to be Orange Mask Obito, but still with Hashirama cells, Wood style, Fire style, Kamui, Genjutsu, etc. So versus each other member of the Akatsuki at the same time. So obviously excluding Obito, but we have Pain, Itachi, Kisame, Deidara, Sasori, Konan, Hidan, Kakuzu. I mean, maybe Zetsu if you want to throw him in there, but I personally rather just not. I mean, if you want to use the
he's not gonna matter here.
So yeah, and the battlefield is going to be just like a random location. It's not going to be anywhere specific. So that's all that way to say. I mean, Sage, you got anything before we get started?
No, I mean, I'm excited to jump into it. I think we're going to bring up some cool stuff that a lot of people may not be aware of, maybe remind you of some stuff you may have forgotten, but, ultimately give you guys the arguments you need to beat up your friends in Naruto debates.
So, right off the bat, me and Sage were, talking about before we started recording that the biggest issue for them, for Kakashi and Obito, is going to be numbers. The numbers is going to be, not in their favor, obviously. And even more so when we're talking about people like Sasori, Kakuzu, and Pain, because Pain for obvious reasons, because he has 6 paths of pain. Kakuzu with his 5 hearts that he can put out in the field, and then Sasori with his 100 puppets. So adding on to the rest of the Akatsuki and any of the animal summons that Pain wants to summon. And obviously, if we're talking about in character, Pain does typically start off with a summoning jutsu, and most of his fights he did it with Jiraiya, he did against the Leaf Village, he did against Naruto and B. So it's safe to say he might bring at least 1 to 3, and if you felt like he wanted to, he could summon all of them. So Kakashi and Obito definitely have their work cut out for them as far as the numbers go. But me and Sage were actually thinking that like this may depend on how they want to take this fight. And we say that because obviously all the Akatsuki members are deadly. No one's disputing that. But obviously there is a totem pole on how much more deadly each respective member is compared to the other. And obviously excluding Obito, Itachi, and Pain are the top tiers of the Akatsuki. So if it might be disingenuous to say this, but personally I don't think it is. I don't think it's sleeping on the rest of the Akatsuki members to say that the biggest priority for Kakashi and Obito is getting Pain and Itachi off the field.
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. A lot of people have different rankings in terms of how they arrange their Akatsuki list, but the vast majority of people are going to have Obito, Pain, and Itachi in the clear top 3, and then everyone else you can argue about after that. And you can change the order of those 3 however you want, but those are usually the top 3. So that being said, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that those 2 are the most dangerous on the battlefield, particularly with their hacks. And so I do think that with their awareness of how strong these guys are, with their awareness of their abilities, how lethal they are, what they have in their bag, or Obito and Kakashi are immediately going to be like, hey, let's get these guys off the battlefield as quickly as possible, and then we can deal with the rest. Because if you eliminate Itachi. You eliminate the possibility of Totsuka Blade GG. You don't have to deal with Amaterasu. Tsukiyomi's no longer an issue. Yasaka Magatama's no longer an issue. He can't protect himself or others with the Susanoo. The Yata Mirror is no longer an issue. So it's like all these different things that he has get taken off the battlefield. And then with Pain, he can add to their numbers advantage. He can summon these gigantic creatures that would be a huge pain in the ass to deal with. He has Shinra Tensei, Chaotic Shinra Tensei, Chibaku Tensei, Bancho Tenin, just the craziest crowd control moves ever, and he can absorb chakra, and yada yada yada. You guys already know. I think that their main prerogative initially is going to be to get them off the battlefield. And Kakashi, before receiving any Nine-Tails chakra in the War Arc, was able to pop off 5 Kamuis on panel, along with 8 Raikiri/Raikiri variants. He used Shadow Clones twice and the Mud Wall once. And he finally started to fatigue after using like a really big Kamui attempt. And so I think it's fair to say he could just snipe one of them off rip, especially because his Kamui teleportation speed is at worst faster than KCM1 Naruto, and at best faster than KCM2 Naruto, just depending on how you interpret the feat of him warping away the KCM2 Shadow Clone. So for me, I think that that's probably what they're going to do. I think Kakashi immediately is going to try to go for Pain or Itachi. Probably just get Itachi off the battlefield immediately, because even though Pain has more raw power, Itachi is craftier and he just doesn't want to leave anything open to chance. And then right after that, probably going for the Diva path. And then from there, I think we can talk about how the rest of that goes.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and start off with the Itachi versus Kakashi aspect, because I know a lot of people are going to get on us about that. Now, if you watch my War Arc Kakashi versus Itachi video that I did a while ago, I did say in that video that because, Edo Itachi's reaction time speed scales, at worst to KCM1 Naruto level, that because the Edos scale a bit lower to their alive versions, that you could put Itachi's reaction speed a little bit higher than that, bare minimum. But I still said that in that video that there's a really good chance that Kakashi's Kamui speed was, like Sage said, at worst KCM1 Naruto level as well, but at best above KCM2. So at worst case scenario, it's a 50-50 maybe that you can get that Kakashi can Kamui Itachi or not, or if Itachi might be able to react in time to enough to it. But even if that is the case, the fact that Obito is on the field now is going to present another problem, because we mentioned this the last time we recorded. The fact that Obito is able to affect Kamui at all, as we saw when Kakashi tried to warp the Geto statue's head, the fact that Obito is able to affect Kamui in order to cancel it, in theory, the opposite should be the same. He should be able to affect the speed of Kakashi's long-range Kamui even from a distance, as evident when Kakashi tried to teleport Obito into the Kamui dimension to help Naruto against Madara. Madara shot both of the True Secret Orbs at them at point-blank full speed, and Kakashi was able to get Obito into Kamui before that could happen. So it should be the same case for Obito affecting the speed of Kamui on Kakashi's end. So if that is the case, I don't think Itachi's got the speed or reaction time on the same level as Deidara. I'll be honest. So I think it's more likely that if Kakashi just off-rip wanted to go for Itachi, that it is possible now, more so than it's ever been. And that's saying a lot, since it was already 50-50 at worst.
Yeah. No, so I famously, or maybe infamously, lean in the direction of a higher interpretation for Kakashi's Kamui. And so I don't even think it would be necessary for Obito to assist. I think that the fact that Kakashi's able to snipe away a softball-sized Rasengan out of KCM1 Naruto's hand in so quickly that Naruto doesn't even move more than a couple inches, tells me that anybody who's as fast as KCM1 Naruto or relative to him would not be able to move their head entirely out of the way before he can take a large chunk out of it. So even if you take a lower end, that's the case, and then if you take the higher end with KCM2, he'd be able to warp away Itachi's entire body before he can move a few inches. So I don't even think it'd be necessary. But I think the fact that Kakashi and Obito do in fact use both versions of Kamui in tandem in order to speed up Obito's warping from his right eye should also allow for them to speed up Kakashi's long range, because like you said, he can affect it in general from long range, despite, like, it's not like he ran over to the Ghetto Mazo and then stood in front of where Kakashi was looking and activated his Kamui. He did it from a distance, so we know he can affect it from a distance.
While he was fighting.
Which should mean, yeah, exactly, which should mean that he should be able to speed it up from a distance as well. So I do think it's an entirely reasonable thing to say. And maybe if Itachi and Pain are standing next to each other, you might be able to say that they could make a portal big enough to warp away both of them and have it activate so fast that they can't move out of the way. So, like, whether it takes one shot or two shots, they're just kind of cooked. But that being said, I think after that, the biggest problem on the battlefield post that is probably going to be Kisame. You could argue maybe the animal summons, because I don't think they're going to get all 6 paths of Pain in one shot, but like getting the Diva path off the board is the most important. So once Itachi and Pain are gone, it's like, all right, we got to deal with the animal summons, got to deal with Kisame, got Deidara dropping bombs, have poison, needles being shot at them, Hidan doing what he does, Kakuzu firing off elemental blasts. So like they still have a lot to deal with. But the thing is, I think it's really important right now to establish sort of where they physically scale at this point in the series, because then that'll kind of help us determine how they're going to physically interact with people. And for Kakashi in particular, it's super simple. Even before getting any Ninetales chakra, he boxes with the same level 2 Chinchuriki that like juggled KCM1 Naruto. He fights 4 of them all at once by himself using just a shadow clone. This is while Guy is fighting Saiken the Six Tails by himself. And so I think that we can safely say, and he's able to like tag them and everything, right? And just doesn't get beat up and ragdolled like Naruto was. So I think we can safely say that this version of Kakashi is a KCM 1 plus level combatant, maybe even MKCM level, not quite KCM 2 though. Which puts him definitively above everybody else on the battlefield right now in terms of physicals. And then with Obito, it's a little bit more difficult because he doesn't really showcase his power a lot, especially in Orange Mask. I'm a believer that he doesn't get physically superior in the War Arc. He just gets a Rinnegan, and I don't think the Rinnegan amps your physical stats unless you're the original user. But if you think that's the case, then basically the best thing you have for Obito is him reacting to Kakashi's Kamui at the 5 Kage Summit, which would get him above Kakashi at that point in time, who's relative to Sasuke. So it's like, on the low end, you have a KCM 1 plus level combatant in Kakashi, and then like a 5 Kage Summit level plus combatant in Obito, which should mean that physically they're not getting dominated by any of these guys. But how do you think everything goes whenever all the abilities come into play?
All right, so I'm glad you brought that up, because here's the thing. Both sides now, after they get Itachi and Pain off the battlefield, the is going to be the same for both sides. For Kakashi and Obito in specific, he's going to have the problem of not being able to phase anymore because Itachi is in the Kamui dimension, so he can counter each time Obito decides to phase. For the others, you have people like Deidara and Sasori in particular who can't use any of their more, wide range, deadly jutsu such as C4, C3, obviously C0, and Sasori's poison. And for Kakuzu, you could argue he may not want to resort to using any of it, because that wind style attack that he pulled out in that fight against Shikamaru and company, that was a massive attack for what it was. So even Kakuzu might have to be a little more limited in his fighting. So
yeah,
each side has restrictions. Now on the Kamui side, I brought this up to Sage, and honestly, this might just be up to interpretation. This might just be what you guys believe, but with the whole Kamui counter phasing thing, it is still a possibility. Like, I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but here's the thing. If we're taking, like, for example, Deidara starts to shoot missiles at Obito might be able to quickly phase enough time to where the part of his body that would be in Kamui when Deidara shoots the missile might not even be in there long enough for Itachi to capitalize on. Like, Obito can phase quickly through attacks. And so, like, say, for example, Mike Guy was coming at him like he did in the War Arc and was just like spamming taijutsu right at Obito. Each part of the body that, it would have come in contact with Guy's attacks would go into Kamui, but they're each going into Kamui like as he's hitting them. And then he's I don't know. It just depends on like how fast you think, or how I guess it just depends on how long you think the part of Obito's body would be in Kamui by the time any of the other Akatsuki members' attacks finishes. I don't think any of them are going to be attacking for like a minute, like outright. Because for one thing, aside from Kakuzu, Hidan, and Kisame, and you might be even argue like not Kakuzu either, but most of them are more long-range fighters. And so they're not going to be trying to get up close to Obito or Kakashi all that much to try to use taijutsu, meaning that most of their attacks can just either go right through Obito almost immediately, or they can just dodge it outright anyway. So with the Kamui phasing thing, it just depends on how fast or how much time it would take for Obito to phase through an attack and how long that part of his body would be in the Kamui. So I'm not saying the counter isn't there. Because, I mean, let's be honest, if he's Itachi of all people, he is quick to analyze and pick up on certain things like that. So Itachi could pull off that feat. But if it is the worst case scenario where we say that Obito cannot phase anymore because Itachi is in the combo dimension now, then the question becomes, how can Kakashi and Obito take this fight without Obito being able to phase? And I mean, that's a fair, handicap. Like, I'm not even gonna be honest, because at this point, Kakashi's at worst expelled maybe 2 shots of Kamui. So he still has, 3 in the chamber plus all of his regular jutsu if he needs to. And then we also have Obito here who, doesn't really have a finite chakra supplies. So, but the issue with Obito here is that he can still pull people into Kamui. So, I mean, if he gets in close to people like, Hidan or Kisame, who do use taijutsu and more melee style of fighting, I mean, we saw that Obito was able to block Suigetsu's attack at point blank, and he did it with like minimal effort. So if you wanted to like scale Kisame like above that, obviously, I don't think he's that much physically stronger than Suigetsu to the point where he wouldn't be able to block it either. And if he couldn't, he's still close enough where he could pull Kisame in. We saw that he was able to do that to Fu and Torine without even having to touch them. So
here's the thing. I think that this is kind of predicated, like how the rest of this fight goes is sort of predicated on how you think Kakashi snipes them. If you think that he warps away Itachi's entire body, then it's a problem, because I do think he'd be able to set traps as soon as he realizes that Obito's real body goes into the Kamui dimension when he phases. He's probably just setting the entire place ablaze with Amaterasu. You know what I mean? So I do think that could be a huge issue. But if you think Kakashi just tries to take his head off, which is how I think he would go about it, then that wouldn't be an issue. The reason I say that is because not only does he obviously go for the Geto Mazo's head, the first time we ever see him use Kamui against Deidara, he's aiming for Deidara's head. We see the portal appear on his neck. So we know that that's something that he's going to try to do. He misses and gets his arm because he couldn't properly control it at the time. But the portal appears on his neck and he moves out of the way of it. So it's in character for Kakashi to just literally go for the decapitation with Kamui. I don't think that that's unreasonable to say. So, and then we also know he prefers precision snipes with Kamui anyways, probably because it takes less chakra. People who are on that caliber, we know that he prefers to do that. We know that he does go for the head. So I don't think it's unreasonable to say that he probably just snipes Itachi's head off and GG's, move on. And then it's not an issue with, Obito phasing. But if you assume that he warps away his entire body, then, which I don't think he would do, especially since he understands how Kamui works and understands how to counter it, he would probably know that this is probably not a good idea. But if you think Kakashi just has a brain fart and does that anyways, then yeah, I still think that the rest of the Akatsuki are going to have a giant issue. This is a guy who probably has better genjutsus than Itachi. The reason I say this is because Data Book 3 says nobody in the world can control the Nine Tails chakra. And we know that Obito did that, but we know that Itachi was in the world during the time of Data Book 3 and could not control the Nine Tails chakra. And by the way, Obito did this with his base Sharingan. People get their panties in a wad when you bring this up, but it's probably honestly because he has Hashirama cells amping it. He's also just really strong, learned from Madara, he's got a lot in his bag, but he just probably does have stronger control genjutsu than what Itachi has, and which is, backed up by him controlling Yagura as well. So that should be able to put down basically anybody there aside from Sasori, because he's a puppet. So if Genjutsu GG is a real option, and Kakashi, by the way, at least in his Genjutsu defense, is capable of going toe-to-toe with that same Obito. People will say Obito is holding back, but he has no reason to with his Genjutsu. Like, if he's trying to get Kakashi to stab him through the heart, the best thing to do is to Genjutsu him and force him to do it, as opposed to, like, actually fighting him and risking him not doing it. So he was probably using his best Genjutsu there. But that being said, you have two guys who are Genjutsu demons. You then have Kakashi still able to combo snipe everybody. You've got these two dudes that outscale everybody on the battlefield. The only big issues they're going to have are, like, avoiding poison and not getting swamped by Kisame's water. But after removing Pain and Itachi, and then the animal path of Pain as well, the rest of them are going to be like, no problem. Kakashi's still going to have at least 2 shots with Kamui, and 8 Raikiri/Raikiri variants, and clones, and Blood Walls, and Obito's going to have Wood Style,
I was going to say,
have Fire Style, and Genjutsu.
I was going to say, I mean, we were kind of operating in the assumption this entire time that Kakashi needs Kamui to help in this fight. And for some people he does, but others like Kisame, Hidan, Kakuzu, he doesn't really... He could just Raikiri them. He cut Hidan's head off. Like, the hearts for Kakuzu, yeah, might be an issue, but, like, a Raikiri should be capable of dealing damage to them, like, enough to destroy them. And,
yeah.
And then Kisame will put up a fight. I'm not even gonna sleep on Kisame. Kisame's tough. So, like, worst case, he'll have to, like, Kamui snipe him. But, I mean, that still doesn't change the fact that if he cuts his head off with Raikiri, it's still GG. And then you have Obito here backing him up with any kind of, like, backup weakness. So, like, yeah, like, Sasori and Konan probably the most annoying to fight because there's so many puppets he's got to get through. The poison is going to be a problem, but Kakashi has the headhunter jutsu. He can just bury underground and close the distance on Sasori. And if he needed to, if he had to, he could snipe Sasori's heart and, end it there. Yep.
And by the way, he could probably see it because the Sharingan sees chakra as a color.
Mm-hmm. So... And then, like, the last one is Konan, really. And look, I love Konan.
It's cooked.
She's tough. Like, I'll give it to her. She's tough. She went, she had a little decent scrap with Obito before the Sea of Paper Bombs, but against both Kakashi and Obito, no. So, I mean, it really is all dependent on if you guys really believe that, it's all depending on how well you guys think Kakashi and Obito could get Itachi and Pain off the battlefield quickly enough before all the other Akatsuki have time to utilize and bum rush them. But the thing is, like we're saying, if we're taking Kakashi and Obito at their smartest, they will probably know to get Pain and Itachi off the battlefield. I mean, at this point, Kakashi is seen just about every Akatsuki member fight, aside from Konan. But regardless, like, he's seen every Akatsuki member fight, and he will probably more than likely deduce that Itachi and Pain are the more deadly ones to get off the field first. So, yeah, I mean, Pain is tough, but like they said, the Diva path is really the only issue for these two. And so, I don't know. Even with Obito not being able to phase, if they're able to get Itachi and Pain off the field, I don't think the rest of them can combat Kakashi and Obito personally. Especially if we are going off the assumption, like we said earlier, that Obito and Kakashi's Kamui speed can be doubled by each other. Kakashi's affecting Obito's speed. I know some people might not agree with that, but still, like, it was shown, like, when Obito was able to teleport before the True Secret Orb from Madara was able to hit him. So it is shown that Kakashi can speed up Obito's Kamui too. So, I mean, it's just, it might even be the same thing if Obito tries to touch somebody to warp them into Kamui. Kakashi can speed it up if he needs to. A worst case scenario.
As soon as I thought about it for 5 seconds about whether or not Kakashi would warp Itachi's entire body into the Kamui dimension or just his head, I was like, yeah, it's probably just taking his head off, because he would know, like, this version of Kakashi knows about the weaknesses of Kamui, of the phasing. He'd be accounting for those in his plans, so he's probably not gonna, like, set Obito up for failure, which then just eliminates the problem of Obito not being able to phase towards the end of this fight, which then keeps everyone from being able to do anything to Obito. So yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, this is just a good example of why, like, there are War Arc level characters And then there are characters that come before the War Arc. And Itachi, Pain, and Obito were all three exceptions to that power cliffing rule because they're all War Arc level characters, at least early War Arc level characters in earlier parts of Shippuden. But they all cliff the rest of the Akatsuki in the same way that Obito and Kakashi here cliff them as well, because they get, especially Kakashi, get later scaling that raises them up, that totem pole. But yeah, it's not as close as a lot of people think it is, and I hope that we made that abundantly clear.
Well, I think people probably will get on to me because I said that War Arc Kakashi versus a full-on healthy Itachi is like really close, and I think it is. But then when you add like Obito into the mix, first of all, we know from experience that Kakashi excels at teamwork. So the fact that he already has an extra, whether it's someone like Guy or Naruto, or in this case Obito, the fact that it's his Kamui partner too is going to be even better.
Yeah.
So, and that's not even like mentioning, we didn't mention certain things like if, Obito can bait and switch sometimes. Like he might have Kakashi hit him from the back and charge that into Akatsuki while they think that they're charging at Obito, and then just use Raikiri to cut their head off. Like they can play that tactic too. So like, as smart as Kakashi and Obito are, with their Kamui speed being enhanced already, with Kakashi's arsenal, with Obito's arsenal, I think the biggest thing that somebody might give us crap for, or might bring up, I suppose, is if Itachi throws up his Susanoo right from the get-go to help combat Kamui, which we talked about this before. For one thing, worst case, Obito can still just phase right through the Susanoo if he needed to and pull Itachi in. But also, the data book does say that Kakashi's Kamui focuses on a point beyond his line of sight, meaning that it's a really good implication that he can still snipe Itachi within the Susanoo and completely bypass the Susanoo armor in the first place and still either whole body or cut his head off. So I brought this up too in my Itachi versus Kakashi video also. The headhunter jutsu can still apply to the Susanoo too. Like he can still use the headhunter jutsu and bury underground and appear within the Susanoo in front of Itachi and use Kamui right there. Which, if he's that close to Kakashi with using Kamui, no, there ain't no way. Especially if Obito is quick enough to enhance the speed at any time. So, I would just like to add really quickly to the Kamui over Susanoo point. It specifically says in the data book entry for it that there is no defense against this technique. It says people can struggle, but there's no defense against this technique. So you can't defend against it. So the Yata Mirror is a defense, wouldn't work against it. The Susanoo is a defense, wouldn't work against it. And then also, as Lightning said, focuses on a point beyond their line of sight, or beyond his line of sight. So it's not even something that, if there's an obstruction, he can still warp something away beyond that obstruction, more likely than not because of that. But yeah, the Susanoo just will not work against it, as no defense is capable of working. This is the same data book that we get the description for the Yata Mirror in. So it's like this is just telling you the Yata Mirror wouldn't work against it. So yeah. So there's the video. I hope you all enjoyed it a little more than last time. But if you didn't, I guess let us know. But thank you all for watching. Thank you so much, Sage, for being on the channel again.
Anytime, brother. It's always a good time when we get to cook together. Looking forward to the next one. But yeah, if you guys didn't like the video yet, make sure to like it, subscribe to both myself and Lightning, notification bell, all that good stuff. And let us know what you guys thought. If you agree, disagree, blah, blah, blah. Comment sections there.
100%. Yeah, I'll leave a link for Sage's channel in the description below. If you haven't subscribed to him, make sure you do so after you watch the video. But as I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Until the next one, like the snow, out.